How does that Night Sister keep following us? Sierra called them Force wielders. I've never seen it used this way before.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw this.
You trespass, Jedi.
You must be a Night Sister. I had heard you were all dead.
Not all. Dothamir is forbidden to you. Leave at once.
So I haven't had much exposure to the expanded universe in Star Wars. So seeing the Force used in this way was a little bit immersion breaking when I first saw it, but wasn't too bad. And this type of magic system did give us space zombies, so I can't complain too much. Ultimately, my critique isn't going to be about the magic system itself, but rather a few plot points in the story. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a criticism of the game. I very much enjoyed it. I just thought there were a select few points in this game that could have done a little bit better. And not that they did bad, but it could have just been implemented a little bit better in my opinion. The game was very linear, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a few points in the game it seemed like there should be a little bit of choice involved. So I'll get to that shortly.
This place used to be home to a powerful cabal of Force wielders known as the Night Sisters.
They use the Force? What, like Jedi?
No. These witches served only themselves. Their powers focused on deception, illusion, manipulation.
Huh. Sounds like someone I used to know.
During the Clone Wars, the Night Sisters made a deal with a Sith Lord who betrayed their trust. In the end, they were nearly wiped out in a massacre. Dathomir is a deadly place. We should be careful.
Don't have to tell me twice.
What I love about the events leading up to the boss fight with Terran Malicos are how many different hints are dropped about who he is and what he is. I mean, it's pretty obvious the first time that you talk to him that he's gonna be a bad guy.
A fellow wanderer. I see you met the resident Night Sister, but unlike most, you're alive.
But I just love the extra storytelling they've done on the sides with just hints dropped in mostly through the Force echoes. And that's actually leads into one of the problems I have with the storytelling. And that is that as you play through the game and you find out information on Terran Malicos, you find out that he is very interested in learning about the Dathomirian magic system. And he spent a long time on this planet, and he's been taught in the ways of the magic by the Night Sister. Now, when we finally get to confront him as a boss, he only fights as a Jedi or a Sith would, in the sense that we know the Force through the movie and the rest of the game. And it's kind of a bit contradictory of me to, I guess, have an issue with this, considering I wasn't a big fan of the magic system in general being in the game, but since it is in the game, and since they've put so much emphasis on the fact that Malicos has been learning this magic system, it seems very odd to me that he doesn't use any of this magic during the fight with him. And that is it for point 1. So the segment playing here is one of my favorite of any video game I've played. When I saw the clone trooper for the first time, I had like a sinking feeling in my stomach because I knew that Order 66 must be coming soon. And then you go to the next clones, and then they're talking about receiving new orders, and then you go to the last clone, and you high-five him or fist bump him or whatever. And that just made it worse, that you're like, oh my god, these Jedi really had a connection with the clone troopers. So then you go into the next room, you do the challenge there to get to Master T'Pol, and from then on out, it's just a full-blown, like, cinematic sequence with Order 66 happening, and Cal having to escape, Master T'Pol fighting off the clones, and it's quite an intense scene. I found that whole segment to be executed brilliantly. So, kind of paradoxically, I do have an issue in the following segment, and I wouldn't have had that issue had that first segment not been executed so perfectly. And that is, by the time you exit that past vision, you're now in another Force vision, and Cal sees his Master T'Pol alive, and he's an adult now. And when I first played it, I was so breathtaken by that whole segment that I was just kind of like standing there in shock. And I realized that the game, like all the game design cues are saying you have to fight Master T'Pol. Like you come out of the segment, you just open up your lightsaber, he opens up his lightsaber, he says time for your instruction. Like every game design cue is saying you gotta fight this guy. But what I found disconnecting about that was they did such a good job with evoking an emotional response in the previous segment, and it ended with sadness over the loss of Master T'Pol, and probably guilt felt by Cal over failing to, he lost his lightsaber, and he didn't get the doors open quick enough, so he probably feels guilty for his master's death. So it seems very weird to me that Cal, after reliving this incident, would want to fight his master. Now, I understand people deal with emotions differently, and if this were a movie, perhaps he would react first out of anger, and that makes sense in a way, but as a player playing a video game, player always has a bit of agency, even in a linear game like this, and my response was, I don't want to fight this guy. And I know for movies like, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi that a lot of the times the Jedi will be tested, and I thought maybe, every part of the game that I've interacted with Master T'Pol has been in training, so perhaps he's training me not to be so reactive. And again, that was overthinking it, because the game design clearly wanted me to fight him, and at a certain point I was like, okay, I just gotta go in there and fight him because that's what the game wants me to do. But that kind of broke the immersion that I had in the game. It kind of broke what the preceding segment had set up. And they could have simply fixed this by just making Master T'Pol strike first. That's what's so frustrating about that to me. Because Master T'Pol wasn't a Force ghost. I don't imagine in any way. He wasn't a Force ghost like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda in the original trilogy. He was more like a vision, like Empire. In Empire Strikes Back, when Luke's in the dark side cave and he sees the vision of Darth Vader, that's not actually Darth Vader. So it's not really Master T'Pol. And I don't know. So it's just it would make sense with Cal would probably imagine that his master is disappointed in him and angry with him because Cal believes it's his fault that Master T'Pol died. So T'Pol, in Cal's eyes, in this vision, it would not be out of place at all for him to act angrily. And he is angry, even if you listen to the dialogue in the scene anyway. He's being very angry. He's just not striking first, which to me truly feels out of place, because if I were in Cal's shoes, I would not want to fight him, but I would fight him if he attacked me first. And then fighting out of defense, he's all emotional, then he stabs him, and then from then on it can progress the way that it did. And that all makes sense to me, but it's so weird. It's such a nitpicky thing for me to kind of break apart, because ultimately it's just one little thing. And Master T'Pol does strike first the second time you have the Force vision when you return to Dathomir. So I don't understand why they didn't put it in there the first time. But yeah. And even if you were the strike first type of person, like perhaps they could have had a timer being like, okay, it's been 5 seconds, no attack has happened, now he's gonna attack. And I just think thematically that would have made more sense, and it would have allowed for more of a natural response from the player. Because, yeah, like I said before, it's just kind of weird being put into that position, and I can tell all the game design cues are saying, you gotta fight this guy, and I'm like, I don't want to fight this guy, and I only don't want to fight him because of how well the previous scene had been. Had it not been executed the way it had been, I would have just followed the game design cues kind of mindlessly. So, I don't know, it's an interesting one. My critique on Master T'Pol, or the Master T'Pol segment, is that he should have struck first. And it's only because the first flashback vision was executed so perfectly. And that's it for point 2.
Surprised if I send you a bill.
Someone's low on funds.
I mean, sure, okay, that may be part of it, but I'm used to it. Were you rich growing up?
Wealth isn't really a priority for Jedi.
Yeah, well, I was poor too, but it wasn't so bad. My crew and I would find things to do for cheap. That's where I learned how to play Subak.
A game which requires credits. Strange choice.
Well, we were kids. We bet all kinds of dumb things, from food to funny-shaped rocks. Unfortunately, things changed when we got older. Funny-shaped rocks didn't go so far anymore.
The galaxy would be a better place if they did.
So I found this very interesting once I played through the game. So, Grease mentions a lot throughout the game that he gambles and that he has money issues. And when I played through the game for the first time, I didn't think twice about that. So when I ran into that bounty hunter for the first time, it was such a cool experience, because at first I'm like, okay, why is this random boss here? Okay, it looks like a bounty hunter. I'm trapped in a bubble. I'm fighting him. He knocks me out. Wait a second. I'm not dead. It says reawaken. Wake up. I'm in a prison ship. I'm like, oh my god. He's a bounty hunter. He caught me. And like, why did he catch me? they've already laid the groundwork that Grease has money problems. And I just thought that was brilliant. And quite frankly, just going through the game, like that level, there's multiple areas that you run into bounty hunters. It's really hard to, I mean, like, no matter where you go, you're going to run into a bounty hunter. And they have it set up so that you can't beat the bounty hunter. You're supposed to go to the ship so that you can learn about solving puzzles using the Force and whatnot. But I really liked it. I thought it was a good, like, that experience was really cool. But the thing is that I played it through the second time, and in the footage that I've put here, I had it on the easiest setting, and you can even see in this footage that at a certain point the bounty hunter's health doesn't go down anymore. So you can't beat the bounty hunters, and that was something that in the back of my mind when I was in that prison ship. I was just thinking, I almost had him. Like, I was almost out of there. I wonder what would have happened if I'd beat the bounty hunter. And unfortunately, you can't, and that kind of sucks. It also sucks, too, because there's at least one player out there I watched a video on who, without cheats, was able to get past the bounty hunters. It was very difficult, and by doing so, it kind of broke the game for a little while. Because of how linear the game is. So I think it would have been cool to have the option of not fighting the bounty hunters. I really like I mentioned before, I really like the way things went, the way that they wanted that story to be told. But I think it would have been cool if they had the option, or, allowed for the chance that a player could beat the bounty hunter, and then, maybe change some of the dialogue. And I don't think there would have been much to that. But that's just a small critique, and the last of the 3 critiques I have for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So if you've watched this far, thanks a lot for watching and listening, and perhaps I'll do some more of these. Thanks. Bye.